Now, this should be rocking up on the live stream any second. This is just me today, folks, if you can believe that. Because Juan has ditched me for Tasmania. Yeah, I don't blame him. I'd ditch me for travel as well. Yeah, there we go. Sweet, that sounds pretty good. All right, I'm not sure I'll need to test that out. That was coming through pretty clear. Let me write a question. What will the question be today? What are some principles you adhere to in your life? Can be big or small. There we go. All right. Now I'm just going to do the posts. Let's send it out to people. Yep. Cool. That's gone to the right place. Coming over to here. I'll tweet that out. Make sure that's going there. Can see things over on there. All right. I think that's pretty good. La la la. All right, I think everything is just about set up and snoozy. That one is sweet. That one is rocking and or rolling. Won't really need to be bringing things up on the screen today, so hopefully won't need to do that. Just make sure that the sound's good again. Okay, that sounds sweet. If you ever have any problems, YouTube people as well, with the audio, you just got to let me know in the chat and I'll be able to fix that up. With our setup here, it's difficult to know where to put it without peaking on the actual recording that we're doing. We have to play this balancing game where we don't want it peaking on the audio that I'm recording on Adobe Audition, but I also don't want it too low for you guys on the YouTube. So yeah, I got to play a little bit of a balancing game between the two of them. I've also got to bring up my notes and or the Discord so that we can do boostagrams when we come to them. And check the date. Today is the 5th. So that means the last one that we did was on the 28th. So, okay, yeah, there's a couple coming in. I see a couple. I see you people there. Very nice. All right, 7 o'clock on the dot. So, okay, thank you. Hola, Pat. Gracias. Voy a comenzar pronto. Ahorita. Okay. Let me bring up my notes. Sweet. Okay. All right. I hope you people are ready because perfect. Thanks, Patricia. Muchas gracias. Y voy a comenzar. Welcome, mortals. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Mere Mortals Musings. My name is Kyron, and we do not have Juan here today. It's just me behind the microphone. He has run away and left me to go travel Tasmania, so I don't particularly blame him. That's a reasonable thing to be doing. Mere Mortals Musing session is typically where we pick a theme, a topic, and we dive deep into that. And so we look at some of the definitions, we look at some of our own personal interactions with this topic. It's kind of philosophizing, deep conversations with a lighthearted touch, although today is going to be deep monologues with a lighthearted touch is how I'll describe it. So today's topic was obviously chosen by me because Juan has no input on it because he's not here. And after our ethics session that we did, how many weeks ago was that now? It was probably about 3 weeks ago is what I would say. If I go to my notes here, it was, just trying to find the actual episode that it was. I think it was 332, correct. And that was where I kind of came away from it, and I thought, okay, yeah, there's kind of like three ethical things which are, I don't know, I would put them at the kind of top of my priority list in terms of these are things that I find kind of super important, and this is where I would, spend the rest of my life contemplating this. And these are things I'm pretty damn sure about, and these relate to some stuff that is definitely inherent to me and what I really care about. And so the three that I came away from that was related to lying. I'm very much not a fan of lying, and so particularly for myself, I tried to eliminate all lies. It's very hard because you kind of catch yourself doing it in the moment sometimes, but whenever I really consciously find myself telling a lie, I go, okay, no, like that's unacceptable. You can't do that. And I've had some very difficult conversations from that in the past. Another one is related to violence. I have some. It's related to some very intense kind of disgust / fascination with it, because I am fascinated with violence, and it's this weird mixture where I do everything I can to avoid it in my regular life. So I don't ever want to punch anyone. I will 100% de-escalate every situation that I can, and yet I see my mind working in ways where I can kind of work myself up into a rage with imaginary thoughts of things that are likely to never happen. Oh, that guy made fun of me, that damn kid. Like, literally, this happened the other day. Damn kid in the park was having a great day, and I could see I was like kind of running in this weird manner because I was trying to avoid stepping on bindies, and I could see him and his friend kind of like making fun of me as I walked up. And he just made this one-off comment to me, just being a little snot-nosed kid. He was probably 16 years old or something. And I stewed on that. For ages, just like, what is this guy's problem? And it didn't need to be like that. And that was one of the ones where it was like, I fantasized about doing something violent or an escalating, a situation happening which was violent, and yet that is 100% not what I want. And then the other one was related to advertising and kind of self-censorship and I guess the truth. So really trying to find out what is true in this world. And anyway, there's a long build up to why I'm talking about this topic. So with all of that being said, and kind of the real pondering, the deep thinking that I did on those ethical topics, there was a lot of things that came up, and I was like, I believe this is true. I think it's pretty important, but it's not something that I would say is an ethical concern on my part. It's not something that runs so deep. And so I wanted to do that for myself. I wanted to think, okay, how could I kind of talk about my life philosophy, if you want to put it this way, or like life principles. So I've created a list and I like to do lists. So the way I'll kind of structure this is I've kind of put it into a couple of different categories, and I'll do half of them now, do the Boostagram and the value for value section, thanking everyone for supporting the show, and then do the second section before kind of wrapping it up. And yeah, we'll just see how we go. So let's start with, I guess, I'll start off with a kind of disclaimer, which is none of these are set in stone. The ethical stuff, that is stuff I believe more firmly. So if you go to that episode that I said, 332, those are ones where I don't ever really see my point of view changing on that. These ones, they're more, they're things which I think about, and if I encounter a problem, this is generally how I would think about solving that problem, or if others have this problem, or this is how I kind of interpret the world. But they're not super strict that I don't think about them all the time. They're not something that I'm willing to stand and die for. But I think these are the things that have kind of helped me understand the world and are ways that I guide my own life. And if I have problems or if good things are happening, I typically put it down to following these kind of general principles, if you want to put it that way. So the first one that I've put here is under the title "Keeping Sane." So I think one of the most important things in life is to keep yourself sane, and I think it's very easy to think yourself into ways which are detrimental to yourself. And so when I say sane, I 100% mean keeping sane in the sense of someone who is crazy and living in a delusional world and not connected to, I guess, like reality in how most of us would say. Now, you could point out and go, oh, but Karen, all of these people who had these wild scientific theories, you think that that the world is divisible into these tiny little things that no human eye could ever see. How stupid are you? And yet, of course, now with science, the scientific method, we found, oh, you know what, atoms, that theory makes a lot of whole sense. Gravity, that kind of makes a lot of sense. So I'm not discounting that you can be crazy and still correct, but is the person who thinks genuinely that birds are fake or birds aren't real, are they living in a world where that they're going to have the best outcome for them and other people, I suppose? And so it's definitely trying to make sure that I'm kind of connected with reality, is how I would, I guess, generally also say this. So keeping sane / connected with reality enough that I'm able to operate within it and do most of the things that I want to do. So can I fly? No. But can I get to a destination via an automobile because I know how to earn money and I know how to, play the system and know the rules of how you drive? Yes, which is kind of equivalent to flying, i.e. getting from destination A to destination B. So all of this, I think, how do I kind of stay sane? Because there's a lot of crazy stuff in the world and a lot of extremely paradoxical stuff. And I think everything needs to be viewed through this lens of paradox. So what once was true might not be true. What is true and has a competing idea, which is also true. Both of them can kind of be true together. And I think this kind of viewpoint is what helps me to understand things which don't seem to make sense. Why are most people good and yet bad things? Why do bad things happen to good people and vice versa? Why do good things happen to bad people? And yet still have the kind of general overall understanding that good things happen to good people and bad things happen to bad people. And I think this lens of paradox, however you want to do this, for me, I've tended to find the kind of Buddhist teachings or Taoism to explain this the best for me. So the teacher does nothing and yet leaves nothing undone. That was that was from the Tao Te Ching, and that connected with me from Lao Tzu, and that idea that you kind of need to be comfortable living with things not particularly making sense sometimes, and that they can be paradoxical. And I think that's definitely one of the ways that I keep myself sane and not get hung up on these tiny little bullshit things, which really can affect your life in many ways. And there was plenty of stories of people who have had what might seem a minor incident to some people, or they had a scare because they almost got run over by a bus, or perhaps they got sexually assaulted, which for most people they can kind of get over, and yet for some people it will scar them the rest of their lives and whatnot. And I'm not trying to belittle this or anything, but I definitely think there's something, there's a mode of thinking which will allow you to not fall into the traps of getting too rigid with something, believing this is the only thing, it can only ever be this way, and going too far down the conspiracy rabbit hole. Whilst acknowledging that a lot of conspiracies are true. So how the fuck do you find out what's the truth? Well, this is where you gotta have some nuance. So I think the reason I have this lens of paradox, which is kind of in the background, it's not like I view everything and go, that's paradoxical. Okay, the world's kind of working. No, it just helps me make sense when things don't make sense, I guess I'd say. And the kind of underlying reason for this is that everything changes, which is super annoying. It's so annoying that everything has to fucking change. You try and put your chips on something, like you put your stake in the ground, your flag in the ground. Okay, this is This is it. This is the truth. This is immutable. And yet some bloody thing has to change and it isn't anymore. And whilst there's plenty of things that don't seem to change, like the laws of gravity and the laws of, I guess, like physics, when it comes to human related concerns and what we really care about, it is, oh, that girl's love for me has changed. Oh, this country, which once used to be a paradise, is now a dictatorship shithole. Oh, this, person who swore they would never betray me, who always acted in this one manner, has this hidden life which no one knew about. I just watched a documentary about Dr. Klein, who was a doctor in the I believe it was the 60s through 80s, who was secretly replacing his sperm with donor sperm and impregnated 94 women who gave birth to 94 half siblings. And he seemed to be an upstanding moral man to his church, his community, to everyone. And yet he did this kind of perverted, sick thing. And there was all of these steps along the way, which made it really, really pretty disturbing. So I think that the way that a lot of people can try and acclimatize to this everything changing is religion seems to provide that meaning in life. Whether this be, how do you explain this thing, bad things happening to good people? It's because God wills it, and that's fine. I think that's a totally valid way of understanding the world. Mine is more of kind of acceptance, like that is the Tao. That's my way of understanding it. But this is kind of the getting to the truth aspect of keeping sane / getting to the truth. Having that as like a background thing. Now, there's two other ways that I really like to do this. One, I think it's necessary to have a hard physical task. So something that is difficult and as close to immutable as you can get. Because I've noticed when the times in my life when my perception of reality was the most distorted. So this was when I had some really wacky views in terms of the way that the kind of elites work behind the scenes. So I had a little bit of a kind of they mentality. It's always them. They are doing bad things. They're introducing chemicals that are, they are trying to keep the population low. They, without specifically stating it, I kind of got caught in that trap a bit. I had some very whacked views around the relations between men and women and how, as a whole, men relate to women. And it was definitely an unhealthy mindset in terms of, I need to be like an alpha male. Women, they can't be trusted. They're blah, 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 blah. There was a lot of weird things. And all of this was relating to my lack, I would call it, of kind of physical exercise, lack of grounding in reality. And so physical exercise, I think, is an amazing way to do this because there's no getting around. You can either do a muscle up or you can't. And you can work your way to getting towards a muscle up. And I think there's just something about a hard physical task where it keeps you humble in a way. So there's no cheating on whether you can do a one-arm handstand or not. Gravity will destroy you if you don't have the proper proprioception of getting up onto your hands, if you don't have the strength in your shoulders, if you're not able to keep your body in line, if you're, twisting or doing some weird things, gravity will bring you down and beat your ass. And I think there's something healthy in that, not being able to fake something. And I think you can think your ways into doing this. So if you live in kind of in a purely intellectual way without having that that contact with physical reality. And you don't have to do handstands. This could be, you could be trying to thread a tiny needle through something. You could be shooting and realizing like, oh God, like, okay, I need to get better at, keeping my breath calm and steady. So when I pull the trigger, I don't have this instinct to react or something like that. And you can do this, many different ways, whether it be with an artistic pursuit of paint, of pottery, of running, swimming, anything. It doesn't really matter what. Just having some sort of physical, hard thing to keep you in touch with reality. There's a pretty good book called Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky, Fyodor Dostoevsky, the Russian. And there's this character in it called Raskolnikov, who he's one of these intellectual people who thinks himself into greatness. He kind of is wonder. He's obviously an intelligent person. There's no doubt about that. Yet he doesn't have this grounding in reality, and he kind of thinks his way into thinking he can become a Napoleon, which is in his head someone who is so they kind of transcend beyond humanity, kings, to this upper echelon of untouchability. And I feel that if Raskolnikov had a decent calisthenics routine, he wouldn't have killed this lady. He wouldn't have thought that he could get away with murder and become a king and an emperor. He would have had to have acknowledged there would have been something inside of him which is like, okay, no, this is keeping me in touch with reality a little bit. So that's one of them. So I think there's just more chance of going astray with pure intellect. The other one is this kind of weird balance between I'd say the scientific method. Now, science nowadays is a little bit, it's a bit iffy, and I've been burnt myself many a time with reading what is purported to be a scientific book and realizing 5-10 years later that, many of the things in this book have been disproven. So if you've ever heard of the Stanley Milgram shock experiments or the Stanford prison experiments, which are kind of ways of highlighting how bad humanity is, like, we give free access to being cruel to someone, and we're definitely going to do it. Or, even if we see that these people are undergoing shocks, if we have a laboratory person telling us, a person in a position of power telling us to keep doing it, we'll keep upping the voltage. And yet, if you look into it, and so a good book for this is Humankind by Rutger Bregman, you'll see that those things are they're just really, really poor science masquerading as the scientific method. And this has happened a lot of times. A lot of Malcolm Gladwell books you got to kind of keep your eye on. Sperm Wars, I always talk about this one, where it was talking about all of these blocker sperms and jacked up sperms and all these things that were happening. And no, it was a very fun story. It was nice. A lot of it was true, but a lot of it was wrong as well. And you can look at the replication crisis and whatnot and go, oh, man, this is all bullshit. I should just believe in what is physically happening to me. I should just believe in, my friend's story and my own personal lived experience, which is a very strong thing to believe in, for sure. Yet I would say if you apply that with the scientific method, i.e. doing repeated trials under the same conditions as best as you can, with minimal variables and only one variable changing, and you measuring the outcome, that is the best way of deciphering what is true in the world. And we'll talk a little bit more later about some rules of thumbs that I use for trying to decipher what's true when I can't do that for everything. I can't determine whether this bottle is leaking paint or something into it and making me worse and whatnot, because I only have one life. I can't repeatedly do all of these things, so I need some other people to help me try and figure this out. But I think having the scientific method as a as kind of the best way of determining truth telling of what is true. That's kind of what I live by, whilst acknowledging there's a lot of things that are saying that they use the scientific method nowadays, which are just not that great science. So that's it. Keeping sane. That's kind of priority number one. Keeping sane and finding out the truth. Another kind of subheading that I've written down here in just terms of life principles, things I think about, is the world doesn't care, but people do. And so in my general observation, it is that if there was a supercomputer that could measure everything, a computer the size of the universe, even bigger than our universe, looking out and checking out all of the atoms in our universe, could calculate all the data. I'm deterministic. I do believe that in many a way, if not completely, mostly deterministic. Now, I do acknowledge that there is some, Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. There's some weird things that happen at the very quantum level. But when it comes to, the real stuff in terms of how a tree reacts, yes, I think it's relatively deterministic. And if you had enough, you could point out, this person's going to do this thing in this life. This person's going to do this thing in their life. Now, I temper this with some paradox here by also going, but the way I treat people is I treat them as if they have their own free will. And so when they do good things, I'm willing to go, oh, what a fantastic person. They deserve praise because they chose free will, and they with their free will, they used it to do good things. And if they do bad things, I go, they were just deterministic. They were going to do that bad thing anyway. That kind of helps me stay sane now, and kind of vice versa for me as well. If I do a good thing, I go, yeah, you know what? Don't get all high and mighty about yourself, Karen, because you're probably going to do that anyway. You didn't have much free will in that. And if I do a bad thing, I go, you could have done better. You could have chosen better, which I think helps me form habits to then do better things in the future. So with all of that, I guess if I'm kind of deterministic in that way, that makes me kind of go, the world doesn't really give a shit. The world doesn't care. And if you come in naively, then cancer, death, hormones, time, betrayal, all of those things I think can lead you to getting absolutely just blindsided by how bad the world can really be, and how cruel and how much suffering there is, needless suffering. A good just visual example of this is the Instagram account called Nature's Medal. If you've never seen that, that is you only need to scroll in that for a little bit, and it'll put you in a different mindset for probably about an hour or two of how you view the world, because it is just, one I saw recently was a cheetah with a basically decapitated mother monkey in its head. Like it had already basically eaten the head, and there was a little baby monkey hanging onto the body, just with this cheetah walking around with her dead mother. That's rough, man. That's really, really rough. And with that being said, I think that however, human evolution has made it so that we're reciprocal beings, that we like to do good things for other people. We like to make other people happy. That, there's the hormones, there's the dopamine receptors and things like that, and serotonin, and all of these kind of like little chemical things in our head, which basically try and push us towards feeling good things and push us away from pain. Which is related to surviving evolution, and this is being, how does Dawkins put it? It's kind of like the uncaring timepiece or uncaring decider who goes, that thing is more fit than that thing, flicked off, you go extinct, this one now survives. There's or the blind watchmaker, I guess, is that's one of his books, so that's not what I'm really trying to express at this moment. Basically, the blind justice, it just makes decisions based on what is more fit than the others. So with that being said, though, I think this can lead to the statement saying that people are by and large good, and that humanity is good because we like reciprocal behavior. We've all kind of decided, it's preferential to give some food to someone if they're starving. It's preferential to not willingly try and cause other people physical pain or emotional pain. By and large, we don't do that. And so, I kind of go, okay, the world doesn't care, but people do care. And so this is where it's getting into those weird psychological things where, much like I go, okay, these people, they have free will when they do good things, and don't have free will when they do bad things, and then switch it versus for me, because that's just how I work. And I think most people kind of operate under a similar sort of thing. They'll either believe in karma, good things happen to good people, bad things happen to bad people. And this is once again that kind of paradoxical thing. The world is cruel, heartless. I'm adding all of these bad adjectives to it when I really should just be saying the world is neutral, bland, and uncaring, not conscious, and it just operates. And this does invariably cause a lot of pain and suffering. Whereas people are generally good, they generally care, and they generally try to do things better. So this kind of helps keep me sane in terms of, there's a very negative nihilism mindset you can get into where you hate the world and the world hates you and people are bad, and I've tasted that before and I didn't like it, and I also thought that was one of the kind of worst periods in my life, having a taste of that sort of thing. So that's kind of the second of my life principles to keep in mind, that the world doesn't care. It can be cruel, heartless, and whatnot, but people do, and people are good by and large in general. And if a bad thing happens to me because someone was bad to me, I've got kind of some mechanisms that I use to keep sane and to keep in touch with reality and the truth. So I think those two will cap us off right there, and we'll get into some value for value Boostagram Lounge, and just seeing what's happening on in the chat. We've got Patricia in there who was helping me out with the audio. We've got Westside Baby saying, hey yo, Westside Baby. And of course, the Joey Broad Shoulders. Wow, what a beanie. Which truck store did you buy that sexy beanie from? I bought it from the Mr. Clean truck store. It's special, only custom made, only for me, baby. This is a legit Chuck's level beanie. And I'm only wearing it for you, Mr. Joseph, because you seem to love it so much. And I might stop wearing it in the future because it's starting to get warm up here in Brisbane. So this is a value for value show. People, we do this show only through your help. It takes a lot of time and effort to create all my notes, to record that, to fix this dodgy laptop that seems to keep wanting to break, to spend the hour doing this. And I just really ask that you send that value back. So however you want to do that, you could share this episode with someone. You could highlight some of your principles that you think are conflicting and why my methodology doesn't seem to work or doesn't seem to make sense. And I'll just I'll come at you with a paradox and go, it doesn't matter. This is my get out jail free card. Just whack that down and I can win any argument. But no, any recommendations and things like that of books, I've listed a whole lot of books and resources just here. If you think that there is something that might be up my alley, letting me know that. And you can do that via, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Discord, any of the social medias. We generally keep an eye out on it. YouTube comment if you want to just get in direct contact with me. And then even more, and my favorite way of it is a Boostagram. So this is a message sent through using one of the new podcast apps.com. So ones like Breeze, Curocaster, Fountain. I use Fountain a lot personally. I quite enjoy it. Castamatic, Podverse. These are all fantastic apps to use. Podfriend. to use and to send through a payment of Satoshis, so a monetary value, so the last of the time, talent, and treasure. And this is what I'm going to do now. I'm going to thank everyone who's sent through a message and monetary value to the podcast. This can only continue with you sending stuff in, with you choosing whatever value you want to send in. I don't dictate that. This is not Patreon. There is no paywall. I'll do this for free as long as I can. And I just ask that you send the value back. So here we have McIntosh sent 200 sats through Fountain. And he says, nice episode, guys. Love the transparency. McIntosh, thank you very much, my friend. He is from the Generational Wealth with Cryptocurrency podcast. If you want to check that out, he's got some decent stuff in there, and he only slightly looks at price, which is a good thing. Most people spend a lot of time on price. He only does it a little bit, so I'll forgive him for that. We also have Borsengelaber, and now I should be pronouncing this in my best German accent, because he says he sent through 101 sats using Fountain as well. And he says, hey, Karen, thanks a lot for your Boostagram. Glad you find the podcast helpful to improve your Deutsch, your German. Viel Erfolg damit. Is there a special reason you are learning it? Greetings from Germany, Thomas. And I'm pretty sure I learnt what Viel Erfolg damit is, and I've completely forgotten. It's like many thanks or many whatever. You can tell that my German is struggling. So the reason I'm learning it, there's many a reason that I'm learning it. Probably the big one is I want to travel to Europe, and I'm kind of like eyeing up 2024. I think that would be cool. And I really want to get the full experience. And I like languages where I can use it in multiple countries, i.e. Austria, Liechtenstein, Germany, Italy, Switzerland, and I think there's another one. There's a sixth one which has German as the actual Austria. Did I say that? And there's as their official language, and then of course there's many a German speaker outside of that, especially in like places like Russia and whatnot. And I like the culture. I like to dive into things. I like learning languages. I like to read, and I like German authors like Goethe, like Thomas Mann, like Hermann Hesse, and I want to read it in the original. So that's another one. I just think it sounds fucking cool. Ich spreche Deutsch, aber nicht so viel. that kind of harshness to it. I love it. So cool. So there's a whole bunch of reasons. And yes, he has a podcast called, let me see if I can quickly find it. He has a podcast called, here we go. Borsengelaber. Hier gibt es jede Woche spannende Stories, News und Learnings rund die Themen Aktien, Börse und Cryptos. So it's a kind of crypto podcast where they go over news and stories and interesting themes. So yeah, I'm definitely going to start checking that out. Petar, the Slav. Petar, you're so very generous. He sends two in here, both using Fountain. The first one is, I must say, I listen to a wide variety of V4V podcast, but Mere Mortals by far makes the best use of chapter art. Boost, thank you, my friend. I spent a lot of time on it, and so it is much appreciated that you notice that. He says, also, these monthly goals seem much more adventurous than usual. GL, guys. Good luck, guys. What he sent through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 12,345 using Fountain. Hey, thank you, my friend. Yeah, the goal, well, for me, I guess it's coming into a new set. So maybe, I'm not sure if it's ambitious or if it's just new. It just, there's just a lot more. And I don't know, Juan's a crazy man. So he's, because he's reduced his number in amount, maybe he's upped the ante. But yeah, for sure, it's fun to set goals, man. I really enjoy it. And, I really hope I can improve and continue to do more. And that's another life principle, goal setting. It's helped me a lot in my life for sure. The last one here from Petar as well, and he says, new mics, ? Sounds different for some reason. And then in brackets, but good. 7777 sats sent using Fountain. So that was Geez, that was like 20K for the week. Thank you, my friend. Very, very much appreciated. No new mics, just dodgy laptop. I'll have to go through the notes and find which actual episode it was that you've boosted this in for, but no, not particularly, my friend. Like the settings have had to change around a little bit because everything on my laptop got wiped. So maybe I did some things a little bit better. I really try and just do the basics with the audio in terms of I don't do a whole lot of post-production on it. Sometimes if there's like a background noise, like a I can kind of get rid of that. And, just general good practice of making sure it's not peaking, although I can still see it's peaking a little bit here. But for the most part, it won't be. Good mic technique, staying the same amount of distance from the mic. Nothing in particular. I'm glad it sounds good. And we have found that mics, we've got 3 different sets of mics here. There's this one, which is XLR only, and we've got 2 different versions of the what are they called? It escapes my mind, but they're an XLR and USB mic, and the ATR 2110 and I think 2101. I think those were the 2, or roughly something like that. We've used a bunch of them in different situations. They all kind of sound the same, to be honest, where the studio is not created good enough to be able to tell what a really good mic sounds like. So yeah, those are all of those. Thank you everyone who's helped support. And yeah, once again, just check out one of the new podcastapps.com. We don't highlight this enough, but once you reach sending through 100,000 sats, we send you through a t-shirt. There's a whole big box of them just behind the camera here. And when you hit 1 million sats as well, we're going to do something special, and we'll get in contact with you. And I'm 100% sure that Petar, across all of the shows, you're above that. So Juan and I will be contacting you soon. I'll wait till Juan gets back from his trip, and we'll organize something special. And yeah, so just keeping up. The leaderboard, the podcast supporter board, is on our website as well, meremoddels.com/support, I believe, or supporter. I should actually know that off by heart, and I don't. And I'm not going to do it now because my laptop is. I'm scared. I'm scared to touch it, to be honest. And yeah, so let's continue on with the episode. So the next thing is the starting point is consciousness. So this is kind of where I tend to get a lot of my thoughts from and go, okay, I think if I have to bring things back to kind of like what's at the base layer of reality, I think consciousness is the starting point. And so if people are making bold claims about the universe or about this thing has to be true, this must be true, whatever it is, I kind of try and go back to everyone says first principles a lot, and I guess this would be my first principle, that consciousness is the starting point. How I got to this point, I think the arguments of Sam Harris have been very influential on me, as well as even René Descartes' book, Meditations on First Philosophy. I think that both of them have very good arguments as to why, if you keep digging beneath the surface of, okay, like what is this bottle real? Could this bottle exist without my consciousness? Things like that. You just have to start there. That's kind of one of the things that I have. And so with all of that, I think this is why I have kind of such a problem with violence and coercion, for example. I think each person has a individual consciousness, and this is something to be valued highly, because without it, there is nothing. I guess, like, if someone's dead, they don't value other things. So this is kind of where I get that point of going, okay, well, anything that is a reduction of consciousness on other people, so killing someone, for example, that I put that right up there in terms of the gravest thing that you can do to someone. And this is also why I have a bit of nuance with related to animals and things like that, because I do believe that there are levels to consciousness. And so I don't feel bad about incinerating a rock, because I don't, by all accounts that I'm kind of measuring, I don't think a rock has as much consciousness. I do feel worse about squishing an ant, and I do feel worse about killing a bigger, larger animal, which I think has more consciousness. And you can look at the levels of this with dolphins and things, and putting a red dot on their head, and they can recognize themselves in a mirror and things like this. And it's, if there was an ability to have meat grown from a petri dish, and you provided, I'd even say just 90%, 80% of the health benefits that you get from the current way that I get meat, which is, or the current meat that I'm eating, 100%, I would do that, and just not, and I think it would be a bad ethical thing to be eating purposefully meat if there's not that much of a difference, and there's a big difference in terms of like violence being done to a conscious creature, sort of thing. And this is also why that, if an AI is more conscious than us, if we can somehow create that, if aliens come and they are, have proven ways of being more conscious than us, I think they rank above us higher on the totem pole. And, that's just one of the kind of ways that I think about things. This is kind of off topic, but I would also place a bet that at some point in the future, and I have brought this up once on the podcast ages ago. Yeah, this was when we used to do it out at Kangaroo Point. And I do think that value, and why I'm so obsessed with value for value is, I think value is so deeply linked to consciousness that this is why the value for value model kind of speaks to me. I think at some point money will be linked to consciousness. Now, how this is done, I'm nowhere near smart enough. I have not read enough literature to know that. But I think at some way we'll be able to link it. And you can kind of see glimpses of this. It was talk about the attention economy. The reason that some of the biggest companies right now are the biggest is because they've monetized consciousness, i.e. attention. That how can this not get linked to money at some point is my question. Now, how it actually would happen, I don't know. But I don't know how the internet works. I don't know how the world is going to look in 20 years, but it's going to be more digital. And I think there'll be some sort of linking somehow. Like it'll be like I'll get into somewhere and my consciousness will have a value. That's basically the way I'm putting it. So yeah, that's crazy sounding, but that's something I kind of think. And then the last one I have here is general rules of thumb. So these are just all things that I've chucked into a box, and it's kind of how I think about living. So one, it's me. If I'm trying to find a problem, if a problem is occurring, if bad things are happening, I usually start with myself. And this is very beneficial in many ways and detrimental in some ways, which if you've listened to us long enough, you've seen that I'm slightly neurotic and get into my own head too much. But it also allows me to solve problems because I don't try and fix the world. Like my initial implicit assumption is not the world is fucked, it's I'm fucked and I need to fix myself. And if I do that and I find out eventually, like, okay, I've put in some serious effort, things aren't getting better, it is definitely things outside of me, then I can either try and fix that or avoid it or change it, it's or accept it. There's many different ways, but I think it's a good starting point to start with. It's me. Another one is removing rather than adding. So if there is a problem, if I do have a life principle, I generally say it's better to get rid of something rather than add something. So whether this is trying to fix a problem in the house, I don't generally think, that smells weird. I want to add a masking deodorant over it. It'd be like, no, I'd rather try and find out what the source of the smell is and get rid of that. If I'm having, like clothing issues or something like that, like it, a lot of times it would be, I would rather, if like I've got a broken shirt or something, or I have a shirt and it just doesn't look great on its own. But if I got this new jumper, it would match it perfectly and it would be awesome. I'd probably go, I'd rather just not wear that shirt rather than add another thing to try and solve it. So in general, that's just my mindset. And this is why I think growth for growth's sake is dumb. I think content for content's sake is dumb. I think anything for anything's sake is silly beyond belief. And the just continual, I don't know. That's not really seem to be how the world works. The world is definitely more of a materialistic. We want more. We want better things, and I agree with this on a lot of senses. It's better to have the more energy that we can harness, the better. The less poverty there is, the better. Yet I think it can go too far sometimes, and so I'm definitely one of those ones who kind of pushes back on. Do you really need that Lamborghini? Do you really need to work 40 hours a week to earn the money to be able to de-stress from working 40 hours a week? Or if you just work 20 hours a week, wouldn't you just be in a better, if not the same, if not better position? I don't know. That's just me. Another one, this is getting towards the truth. So you simply won't have time to verify everything. That everyone knows that. And so I think you need to have good mechanisms for judging what is true and how do you get this? Well, typically you tend to go towards experts, someone who spent a lot of time looking at all the nuances, and then they can give you the general rules of thumb. And if you think I'm an expert, maybe I'm an expert at living life as Chiron, but I really would hate for any of you to come away from this and think I'm telling you to do anything. But I would definitely say that it's good to have a mechanism to find out what is true, and you can't do that all by yourself using the scientific method. So therefore, I tend to trust people more who follow a sort of scientific method, or at least that's the impression that I get from them. And they'll typically be people who act, so they kind of follow all of these things that I'm talking about. So they'll typically have some sort of real world connection, something keeping them grounded. They'll typically have, I guess, an emphasis on values and ethics, and they try and dive deep is typically how I do it. Sometimes I have, several discovery podcasts, which are useful for this. So kind of like Joe Rogan has been a good launching point for me. I've found quite a few people from that. And I don't really know how to describe how I do this. Like I'm just going to list a whole bunch of people, and if you know them or if you don't know them, that's if you know most of them, that would be amazing. But these are the people who I kind of respect in their individual field to give me good knowledge, useful, practical things, which are unlikely to change very rapidly, or at least they are as close to in touch with reality as possible. So people like Adam Curry, for podcasting and trends and what's going to happen with the future. People like Eric Voorhees, Andreas Antonopoulos, in terms of the value of a cryptocurrency, or in particular the cryptocurrency Bitcoin, but also crypto assets in terms of the other ones, and why they are worthy of having value. I think people like Sam Harris, Jordan Peterson for understanding religion, understanding the world, understanding your own psychology. I think they're very, very useful for that. And these are all like the modern ones. I won't even particularly get into the books and classics. Well, maybe I will. People like Naval Ravikant and Tim Ferriss in terms of, I suppose, trends for the future, as well as kind of being interesting, kind of forging your own path and being able to do things differently than perhaps the system or like the 9 to 5 or the normal way that people do that. I think they're very useful for that. And then there's I've gotten a lot of help over the years in terms of straight up calisthenics through people like Daniel Vadnal from Fitness FAQ, Tom Merrick, the Bodyweight Warrior, Mikhail and Emmett Lewis, Mikhail Christensen, Emmett Lewis from Handstand Factory. I think all of these people, their methods and their emphasis of kind of which exercise, how to structure your training, I think all of them kind of follow a lot of these principles that I've highlighted beforehand. So I guess I try and find people who live by similar principles and for kind of real problem solving examples of and whatnot, because there is something to do with time where time can help. It's a weird one. So when I look at my favorite books and what I read a lot now, most of them are classics. They're stuff that have been vetted by, I don't know, like at least 20 years, but hopefully more. And it's rare that I'll read a book that was published in the last year or two and really think like, wow, this is amazing. Like this is revealed deep insights or truths or something like that. So yeah, when I think of those, I go, okay, well, longer time is better. So things that are from longer while is not always going to be correct, but a lot of things that have been vetted by the process of time and that have come across my consciousness, I think those books will tend to have some value in them. Yet, what is it about time with all of these people? Well, probably most of them have been doing whatever they've been doing for at least 10 years. And I think that's another way of kind of how I filter the world and whatnot. So the last thing that is just getting into kind of rules of thumb was you are what you consume as well. So with all of these people, if I'm consuming kind of people who are a little bit unhinged, or maybe they have some values that I dislike, so maybe they're super materialistic, I'm going to become like them by consuming them. And so this also applies to food and drink. So if I'm eating stuff and drinking stuff which is just kind of suboptimal or just straight up bad, you can take this too far by going all the way and trying to be the healthiest person ever, which I think, funnily enough, will lead you to have an unhealthy lifestyle. Yet, so there's where that paradox comes in. Boom, gotcha. Yet, I think it's worthy of thinking about what you consume, what you put on your body. Like I really try and minimize creams and lotions when I wash myself. I generally just use water and maybe like a fat-based soap sort of thing if I can get away with it. I remember this one when I used to have hair back in the day, and I used to wash my hair with soap, and then I would shampoo my hair because I thought that was what you needed to do to get it clean, to make it good. And then I hated how my hair was so silky, so I would use gel to harden it up. And I realized that if I just washed my hair with water, it would stay at not the same level of hardness, but it would keep its shape in the way that I wanted it to. So I was adding products to then add more products to fix a problem, when if I just added nothing, like the problem would have gone away. There's a kind of shit that has impacted in my life and makes me go, okay, this is why I am like I am, why I think the constant consumption, growth for growth's sake, why I think removal of things is is better than adding things. This is what I love about podcasting. I get to list out all of these random little things that I've noticed in my life, and they kind of play into my life principles. So that is it. That is it for today, everyone. I hope you don't think I'm too insane. I would really love to know what your life principles are. What are the kind of things which you take as a general rule of thumb, which maybe help you out with your problem solving, which lead you to living closer in reality, what are the things that you value the most? I would love to know, absolutely love to know all of these things. So however way you want to do that, I really prefer if you do it via Boostagram. But if you want to leave a comment just on the notes for this page, on anywhere, like just reach out to me. I really want feedback of any sort, and particularly related to this question. I think that would be absolutely fascinating. So with all of that being said, I do hope you enjoy this solo session. Juan should be back for the next live one, and so we'll be together. Probably talking about bad habits, I think, is what I want to talk about on the next one. And yeah, the mere mortals will be here to stay. Will continue to do this for as long as I can. And yeah, I really do hope you're having a fantastic day wherever you are in the world. Kyron out. Yes. I was being like a little bit sneaky all of this time because I was worried that my mouse and my screen had frozen, yet I could still see it recording. But I just needed to click the mouse and it was all good. So yes. Thank you everyone for joining. As usual, everyone in the chat, and as usual, I'm going to edit this, and so whilst I'm editing it, I'll be on the Discord. So if you want to hang out, chat, talk, all of these things are great. So if you've missed this one live and you've come to the end of this episode and there's another live one coming up, I should be doing the exact same thing for that one. So 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time on a Wednesday. Everyone, thank you so much. I'm going to head off. Ciao.